Category Phoenix, Part 3. It hardly seemed like a party, David thought. His guests were ill at ease, and their conversations labored. Then, stopped altogether when the menial came into the library with a tray of glasses and niblets. "Put them on the liquor cabinet, James," David said. "And that will be all. Enjoy yourself tonight." The menial put down the tray, and then stopped to fumble with the lock. "Let that alone. I've told you 1,000 times not to monkey with my liquor cabinet. Don't you want me to get out the ice cubes, Doctor?" "I'll do it. You can go now." "But are you sure you won't want me in later, in the evening, Doctor? Who's to serve the supper? Who's going to clean up afterwards?" "We'll manage. Don't worry about us." James shuffled out of the room. "I suppose that means I'll manage," said Lee, with a self-pitying sigh. "I've noticed that whenever people decide to rough it and do it without a menial, they'll take it for granted the women will do the work, never the men, unless the women are still young and pretty. Well, at any rate, I'll have Tanya to help me. I still don't see why you wouldn't let me go to the port to meet her, Dr. Wong. I just thought it would be more of a celebration if we had a surprise party, all waiting for her to walk into the room. Dr. Haslam will bring her here directly from the port. And here we all are, her old friends from the Institute, waiting for her to come home." "I'd hardly say all," said Lee. "I'm the only person from the office that's here, and why have a party in your library, Dr. Wong? Nothing here but books, books, books. Because I keep my liquor here, in the only room I have a right to lock it up. My menial is a good man, but he can't resist an open bottle. Well, it's still a gloomy party." David turned appealingly to his other guests, Hudson and Foray. But they only looked uncomfortable. "Perhaps we need a drink." David unlocked the cupboard and picked up a bottle, which he sat down hastily when he heard voices in the hall. He hurried to the outer door and opened it a few inches to reveal the sturdy shoulders of the watchguard, of the floor, and beyond him, Dr. Carl Haslam. "Everything in order, officer?" asked Carl. "Your permit is in order, Dr. Haslam. A private party. Let me just check. Yes. 3 guests have arrived, and you 2 make 5. That all? You have until midnight. But it beats me why you people in research prefer a party without a watchguard. Or why Leader Marley ever gives permission. Why? In all my years in military, I've never been to an unwatched party, and I must say it never held us down any." Carl laughed a little too forcibly. "I bet it didn't. But all research people are a little peculiar. You must have noticed that yourself." "Well, and you know how generous Leader Marley is, and how kind he is to his loyal citizens. He wants us to be happy, so he pampers us now and then. I guess he knows what he's doing. All right. Well, I'll check you out at 12 then." "Go on in, Tanya," said Carl. They stepped into the apartment, and David quietly closed the door. "Hi, sis," drawled Lee. "You made us wait long enough." She walked towards the girl, hand outstretched, then stopped with a gasp of disbelief. Tanya's red hair was still brilliant and gleaming, her creamy skin unlined, and her full red lips curved up into a friendly smile as she leaned forward for a sisterly kiss, but Lee jerked away and glared with anger. A puzzled frown creased Tanya's lovely white forehead. "What's the matter, Lee? Aren't you glad to see me? You look so strange, as though you've been terribly ill." Lee shook her head. Tears of rage gathered in her pale eyes. "I'm okay," she whispered. "It's you. You haven't changed." "I have. You're still young. You're pretty. You're just the way I used to be." She whirled to face David, her voice choking. "What have you done to her, Dr. Wong?" The four men in the room were all staring at the sisters, scarcely believing what they saw, although they had been prepared for the contrast. The twin sisters were no longer twins. One had retained her youth. The other was faded, aging. "This is awful," Haslam muttered. "Absolutely ghastly." He put a comforting hand on Lee's shoulders, and with a deep sob, she hid her face against him and cried. Hudson and Foray could not take their eyes from Tanya, and David leaned against the wall to stop his trembling. "Sit down, all of you," he said. "First we'll have a drink. I'm sure we all need it. Then we'll face what has to be faced." An hour later, they had achieved a calmness of sorts. They had given up some of their normal sobriety to achieve the calm, but they were grateful to the drug for cushioning the shock. David paced the floor, glass in hand, talking rapidly as he finished his long explanation. "So you see what happened," he said. "When I began the experiment, I had no idea how staggering the results might be. That is, I knew in my mind, but I never imagined the realness of what would happen. I thought of it just as an experiment." Lee sniffed, her resentment somewhat dulled by drink. "So I was just an experiment. Don't you ever think about people's feelings? I know I'm not as good as you are. I'm only office, but I'm human." Carl patted her hand. "Of course you are, Lee, but that is one of the defects of people in research. They forget about human emotions." He looked up sternly at David. "They go ahead with their experiments and hang the consequences. If Dr. Kwong had any sense, he would never have kept this a secret for 10 years. We might have had 10 years to prepare ourselves for such a responsibility. Instead, we have only a few days, or, at most, weeks. Hudson, Foray, how do you feel about this thing now? Are you still game?" Both men seemed a little dazed, but Foray pulled himself together, speaking slowly, like a man in a dream. "We're with you. It's hard to believe we've got immortality." "I'd hardly call it immortality," said Hudson dryly, "since as I understand it, SDE does not kill disease entities, nor ward off bullets, or the disintegrating nuclear shaft of the needler. As we will very likely find out before long. But what do we do now? When people see these two girls together, it won't be an hour before Marley hears about it." David spoke up with a new authority. "He must not hear about it. I know how poorly equipped I am to handle the situation, but since I created it, I must assume responsibility, and I have made my plans. First, you, Tanya, try to realize that if the leader finds out that I have the secret of keeping youth, he will want it for himself. Nobody in menial, nobody in office, nobody in research, almost nobody at all will be allowed to benefit from it. Marley will use it as a special reward for certain rulers, and he will try to keep its very existence a secret so that people in general will not be envious or rebellious. That means he will have to get rid of you. Get rid of me? But I haven't done any harm. Just by existing and letting people look at your unchanging youth, you will be a threat to him. For you will give away his secret. How he'll deal with you, I don't know. Concentration camp, exile, or more probably, simple execution on the grounds of treason, such as unauthorized choice of activity or study. It doesn't matter. He'll find a way. The only safety is for you keeping hidden. You must stay quietly in Lee's apartment until we find a refuge for you. Do you see that? She looked around in bewilderment. Is that right, Dr. Haslam? And what will they think of it at the Institute? I'm supposed to go back to my job in Intercom. Dr. Wong is right, he said kindly. Please believe us. It's hard for you to understand that we are asking you to do something secret. But just try to remember that you are, after all, an office category and are not equipped by training or constitution to think out problems like this. We'll tell you what is the right thing to do. You just do as we tell you, and you'll be perfectly safe. Lee snickered. Oh, she'll be safe enough. Being pretty as she is, what are you going to do about me? Don't I count? We'll come to that in a few minutes. Right now, we need food. Lee, you and Tanya be good girls and go out to the kitchen and heat up some supper for us. After we've eaten, we'll talk about you. As soon as the girls were out of the room, the four men drew together at the table. No use burdening them with too much knowledge, Carl remarked. Even as it is, they are a great danger to us, and the less they know the better. David, will you proceed? I have little to add to the plans that we made last night in the lab. The thing we need most is time, and next to that, a hiding place. We may very soon be classed as traitors, with every watchguard on the continent hunting for us. We'll take care that they don't find us. Now, you said last night that each one of you has accumulated a free choice during the past year, which hasn't been used yet. That's right, said Foray. I intended to use mine next winter to live among the Australian Aborigines for a week. I've been wanting that for years, but the planners always refused me. It was a project without a practical purpose, and I intended to use mine to attempt a watercolor painting, added Hudson. In my boyhood, I hoped to be put in arts category, but the planners laughed at me. I suppose it's wrong, yet I still have the yearn. You have my sympathy, said Carl. I was going to take an aimless tramp, just shed my identity, and wander on foot to the great north area of woods and lakes. David sighed. Well, if we are successful in hiding, and in changing the world as we like, you can all three be free to do as you like, without asking permission. But at present, that's only the wildest of dreams. And, first, we must find our refuge. Today is Saturday. Tomorrow morning, each of you will go to Bureau Med and claim your free choice, and each of you will choose an aimless tramp. But I don't like hiking, objected Hudson. You won't be hiking. You'll take off in your robo-planes, and then disappear. You will be without supervision. You will then proceed, disguised as you think suitable, to find a place for our new colony, somewhere in South America, and make the preliminary arrangements to receive us. You must be back by Tuesday afternoon at the latest. On Tuesday, as soon as you have reported back to Bureau Med, to get to the Institute as fast as you can. Why the deadline? Because by Tuesday afternoon, sometime before evening, probably, I expect all three of you will be suffering from an attack of blue Martian fever, and I want you to get expert hospital care. You will be the nucleus of the new regimen. Carl laughed. I wish you could have picked a base for your SDE that was less unpleasant than Blue Martian. Who's got Blue Martian? Asked Tanya, as the girls came in from the kitchen with their trays of food. I'll never forget how sick it made me. You shouldn't worry, said Lee. It kept you young and beautiful, didn't it? You won't have to envy her, Lee, said David, going to the liquor cabinet. I'm going to give you and the others a shot of the SDE Martian Blue. Sometime Tuesday afternoon, you should feel the first symptoms. But after 48 hours in the hospital, you'll be good as new, and you will all stop growing older. They watched, fascinated, as he opened the cooling compartment of the liquor cabinet. I always like plenty of ice in my drinks, he remarked, drawing out the tray of cubes and opening a small door behind the tray. He removed several small bottles filled with a milky liquid and a copper box of sterile needles and syringes. Who will be first? There was a knock at the door, and David stopped. What is it? He called. Me, came the watchguard's voice. I just thought I'd do you a favor and tell you it's only 10 minutes till checkout time. Time to get yourselves decent. They could all hear the rumble of his laugh as he moved on down the hall. Trembling, David picked up a bottle, poured alcohol on the rubber cap, and deftly filled the sterile syringe. He reached for a piece of cotton, dipped it in the iodine, and looked up, waiting. Carl Haslam had already bared his left arm. David swabbed the spot on the upper deltoid. Carl laughed. Here I come, Methuselah. All set? Asked David. He plunged the needle home.